Hi, Jenny here.
Hi, Joel here.
And this is the first time reader versus multiple times reader of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen reading vlog. So Joel has to read Pride and Prejudice for his uni studies. And I wanted to reread Pride and Prejudice this year, so I thought we would do a little read along together.
The word has to. It's true, but I'm not opposed to reading the book.
We thought it would be interesting to kind of vlog our journey while reading and kind of then conclude our thoughts. But let's talk about the editions we read. So we read this in English, obviously, and this is the version that I got from Rome in 2015. It's the first version of Pride and Prejudice I have in English. It's really stunning. And it has illustrations.
It does. It has illustrations by Hugh Thompson, and they are gorgeous. Honestly, they add so much to the story.
Did it help you with the reading?
Yeah, it takes up pages, so you read faster basically. But it shows like a different sort of view of the story.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but you like the illustrations.
I did like the illustrations. They're really cute, and they're like a very different kind of style that I've ever thought of the characters myself. But they seem like, this is me not knowing anything about it, but they seem historically accurate.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
And I have this stunning Chiltern edition of Pride and Prejudice. It basically is multi-chrome. It's really beautiful. Comes with a little bookmark. And the pages are like silver. It has silver edges. The only kind of downside is that the pages are plastic instead of like paper, but that's a minor issue, like not even an issue at all. Just thought I would mention it. I think what's really interesting in my edition, chapters always started from a new page, while for Joel it kind of could start in the middle of a page.
Like so.
Just something interesting to note.
I'm a first-time reader, so but I do know the story because I have seen multiple times the BBC
1995 series version.
Yeah, and the movie
Couple of times.
So I know the story, and kind of we'll see that does that help my reading experience.
The series was kind of your only access to the full story thus far before reading the book.
Yeah.
And for me, if I'm correct, this is only my third time reading this book. I've read it once in Finnish and once in English, and those were years and years ago. But still, I would call myself a multiple-time reader.
It's true.
All right, let's go into our reading journey vlog bits. Right, so we have now read chapter 16 in Pride and Prejudice. We've gone through Bingley and Darcy arriving. We've gone through Jane being ill. We've gone through Collins coming to the Longbourn estate. And we have just met Wickham and Wickham's recollection of events thus far. So how have you felt as a first-time reader? Well, you know the story because we've watched the miniseries and movies several times.
And I think knowing the miniseries has really affected my reading.
Yeah.
I'm not guessing as much as I think I would be if I was just reading this book now, because the language is not something that I'm used to. So I can like make the connections. Okay, that sentence is a bit odd, but I think I can guess what it means based on what I know about the story. But I've been loving it. Jane Austen is a very witty writer.
Yeah, she's very entertaining. I think what I'm noticing a difference is that I feel like the fact that Caroline Bingley like wanted to marry Mr. Darcy, I feel like that's more present in the book than in the adaptations.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you in the next book. So we are now halfway through Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
What has happened since then? Mr. Collins proposed to Elizabeth. Elizabeth rejected him. And then he proposed to Charlotte Lucas, and Charlotte Lucas said yes. Jane went to London. Mr. Bingley and his companions have gone to London as well, but Mr. Bingley and Jane did not meet in London. Miss Bingley and Jane did meet in London, but Miss Bingley was impolite towards Jane. And right now Elizabeth is in the midst of visiting Charlotte and Mr. Collins at their house. So what have you thought of since our last update?
Well, at first, what I was thinking about the book is that it was like surprisingly fast-paced. Because I've come to think that a lot of classic books are really slow-paced, where they have this mindset that they need to write as much as they can, even if there's like nothing happening. I did not feel that was something that Jane Austen was doing. In every chapter, something was moving forward, and something was moving forward.
What are you going to say?
But no, a few last chapters have been a bit slower.
Yes.
Yes, but the book is perfect.
No, I see that classics can be quite slow paced at times, and yes, the events in the book have slowed down significantly, but it's still not like useless.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I've been thoroughly enjoying my reading experience.
Yes, we just had Mr. Darcy's awkward visit to the Collins residence where Elizabeth was alone, and that was cute. Any thoughts on the future reading?
I'm very much looking forward to things like pushing into motion.
Yeah, things happening.
Because I feel like the end half of the story is much more fast-paced than the first half.
Based on the TV series.
Based on the TV shows and the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like it's gonna like start rolling. Now that we have like pushed the snowball up the hill, now it's gonna start rolling down.
Do you feel like because you've seen the series and the movie, has it ruined your reading experience or has it made it easier?
It's definitely made it a lot easier.
But you know what will happen though?
Yeah, that
the cost.
Yeah, that's like the
cost of Well, it has its pros and cons, but there are still things in the books that were not in the movie and the series, so those are always a nice surprise.
Yeah, for an example, the marriage of Mr. Collins and Charlotte was done very differently in the show and the movie. It just kind of happened in the show, but it was a scheme in the book by Charlotte.
Yeah, it was much more in detail. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I just at all times I'm so surprised at Jane Austen's capability of writing character. Like there is not a single one-dimensional character in the book.
It's true.
Which is fantastic.
I know. She's my favorite for a reason.
Jane Austen, you're pretty good.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of this update. We'll see you in the next one. Alright, we are at chapter 55, as you can see, and we thought we would film us getting to the final chapter, which is chapter 61. We are so close to the end. It feels like the end is already here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, what's gonna happen in the last 50 pages?
It's been really exciting to read this book. And now we will finish it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Oh!
I don't know what you're reacting to.
Alright, chapter 60.
Two more.
61. Let's do this. Oh my god, we have more chapters. Mrs. Bingley, Mrs. Darcy. We did it! Oh my god!
Oh my goodness!
We did it! We read Pride and Prejudice in a few weeks.
It was so lovely to do it together.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like, you also try it, like if you have somebody to read with. Try it.
Yeah, buddy reading, it's a thing.
Yeah. Try it.
It's been so long since I've read Pride and Prejudice, and it's such a wonderful story and so well written.
It is so well written. It's amazing.
Oh my god, I'm so relieved too. Like, this was a thick one for me. I mean, I know on a scale of thickness of books or like page numbers, it's not, but like for me.
And it was really tough for me because I'm a really slow reader. So this buddy reading system, apparently, it really helped me to like keep it up and keep reading and keep going.
So we read Pride and Prejudice basically 5 chapters at a time. You know, sometimes we read more, sometimes we read less. But we read this almost every day for about 3 weeks. And I enjoyed that kind of, for me, maybe it would be considered a slower tempo. But I feel like with that, you could really enjoy the story deeper and you weren't rushing and like just trying to get through the pages and the meaningful scenes. No, I feel like with our method of reading 5 chapters at a time, more or less, like I felt like it was a very good way of enjoying and consuming the story. How did you feel?
Well, it was really fast for me. I'm notoriously a slow reader, which has been kind of difficult, you know, on the university path, studying literature as my minor. So yeah, usually I take a long time when I read, like for myself, for my own pleasure. I finish a book, it takes like the minimum of 2 months. Unless I have a specific time where I get to read. So if we're like traveling or something, I usually read a whole lot more there. Like I usually, if we go on a plane or something, I read from the moment the plane takes off to the moment we land. But if I'm only at home, I read very slowly. So this was actually really good for me to actually have that like allotted time to now we read, and then like allowing myself to take that time to read. I could follow the story much better. I found I didn't like, all right, let's see, I haven't read in a week, so I wonder what's happening now. I could always remember like where we are, where we're going. I think this was a really good pace for me.
Yeah, and after like almost every chapter, not every chapter, but most chapters, we kind of stopped and we're like, okay, kind of had quick reflections on the chapters that we read and like some quick thoughts. We didn't film most of those, we're sorry about that. It was, you know, just for us. But that also helped with the comprehension of the story, and obviously it's classic and it's in an older English than we're used to, so the pacing and then discussing what happened really helped with understanding the story better.
As I've said during the vlog clips, I think people definitely, if they have a chance and somebody to do it with, I think you should try buddy reading. It's actually a really, really fun system to do. Like we read 1 chapter at a time basically, and since you're a lot faster reader than me, you were always like done a few minutes before me. So she waited until I was done. Then we moved on to the next chapter together. I think that was really lovely and really like supporting my reading.
Yeah, and it was such like a lovely way to bond too. But let's get into the story itself. So since you've been used to the series version only, how did that impact your reading experience?
I did know the story, and whenever a new character was introduced, I knew like exactly what's gonna happen, and I could see like Austen and like the narrator maybe like foreshadowing things, you know, mentioning things, as we saw earlier in the story when Wickham was introduced as an example. He was clearly like presented as a super likable good guy character, but you know, knowing how that storyline ends up, it was like really interesting to see that from like that perspective. But I wasn't there with Austen, with the narrator, sort of like discovering the story.
Yeah. I think for me, since it's been years since I've read the book, even though I've read it a couple of times, I've kind of leaned towards the series version as my reference point, which is not really good if we think to my Pride and Prejudice comparison video. Let's not talk about that. But I feel like whenever there was something that wasn't present in the series and we got to know something deeper and further knowledge and even some scenes that were still cut out from the series, even though it has a lot of the original material, I was like really delighted, like, oh, this explains a lot more. For example, for me, it was Elizabeth having feelings towards Wickham. I feel like in the original story, it is much more clear that she does feel something for him, while in the series it's implied, but she doesn't actually like say the words, or at least I don't remember that.
Yeah, I agree with you that of course it's much easier to get inside the mindset and literally inside the mind of Elizabeth. It's been mostly focalized through Elizabeth, the story, so it's really interesting. But then, when you have it in a visual format and without sort of like a thought narrator for Elizabeth's character, it was really interesting to see like the inner story of Elizabeth for her. But yeah, whenever I was reading the book and they were talking about characters and scenes and everything, I saw like in my mind's eye the characters were the people, the actors.
Colin Firth.
Yeah, were the actors from the BBC show.
Yeah, it is kind of sad, but also at the same time, I feel like the casting is really good in the miniseries. So
yeah,
many people often say that if you are new to reading classics, maybe you should try first watching an adaptation to help with your reading and understanding. Do you agree with this?
Oh, definitely. This is like very, very old English, and since English is neither of us native language, but we both you studied English and I'm currently studying English, so we do understand English, but it doesn't make this easy reading.
Yeah.
It is much more difficult to read it. You have to parse sentences. You can't just like automatically read a sentence, and all those like not questionable but like for a modern reader confusing sentences were so much easier to parse because I knew what happens in the story. I could recognize, oh, this sentence means this thing because I know that this thing happens in the story. So it definitely supports the reading.
Who's your favorite character?
Elizabeth. Yeah.
Why?
Because she's represented so well.
Yeah.
Like what I've also said many times during the vlogs is like Jane Austen is the best character writer I have ever read, and I've only read one book from her.
Exactly.
There isn't a single one-dimensional character in the story.
Exactly.
Not a single one. And Elizabeth is like the culmination of this. There is so many sides to her. She's not 3-dimensional. She's like 15-dimensional.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like always something to her character, and she never does anything just cause.
Yeah, and also she is not perfect. I mean, we do root for her, but she has her like moments of misjudgment. I.e. Mr. Darcy, literally the whole story. She's a character that you do want to root for and you understand her perspective. But she's not perfect either. I do feel like even though the society was very different back then, I feel like there's a lot that can still be applied to these times as well.
Yeah, what I also really love about Elizabeth is exactly that she's not perfect, that she has character flaws. Which I feel like it would be very easy to take a character like Elizabeth and make them like this perfect superwoman, basically, but like perfect super character. And I feel like the movie version with Keira Knightley struggled with that a little bit.
Okay.
I didn't see her Elizabeth as having like I don't see her prejudice against Darcy as a flaw. I feel like that shows Darcy didn't really have that antisocial aspect to him.
But in the book there is.
Definitely. Like you could definitely see by the end of the book that, Darcy is not actually bad. He's just been represented as a bad person earlier.
Yeah, and that there's context to everything, and that I don't know if this is completely basic analysis, but that it's not that Darcy is thinking like, oh, Elizabeth doesn't like me the way I am now, I should change for her. No, it's like, okay, Elizabeth thinks this lowly of me, what? But I know what actually happened. How do I present myself differently so that my good intentions that I do have are presented to people in society around us? I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, and it works super well in the context of a book or the miniseries, which might also be one of the reasons why the movie struggled a little with it, because it takes a lot of time to like create that sort of character development. But yeah, in the movie, I feel it felt a little bit like Darcy was like, oh, the girl I like doesn't like me back. Oh, I need to change my personality so she likes me.
Yes.
But like in the book, he didn't do it only for her. But like he did it because he realized that this is not the person, like the way Elizabeth talks about him. It's like, that's not the person I am. What have I done to fuck up that?
Yeah. What was something in the book, in the novel, that you thought that wasn't presented well? It's a great book. It's one of my favorite, but you know, maybe there are flaws. I'm sorry. But like, what do you wish was explored more?
Gosh. Miss Bingley?
Miss Bingley, yeah.
She ended up seeming a little bit evil.
Yeah, and I just don't believe that she is, that there's more to it, but in the book, what was mostly represented about Miss Bingley was her disdain towards the Bennets and her wanting to kind of marry Mr. Darcy. But
Yes.
I feel like, yes, we understand the disdain was due to her thinking that the Bennets are below her, but I feel like that could have been explored more.
Yeah, it could have, and I feel like she could have had like a redemption by the end of the book or something. Because I feel like it doesn't fit in the story that there is a character who is just evil, basically.
Yeah.
Like all the bad things she did, I feel like they were out of jealousy. I feel like there could have been something in the end half of her like coming to her senses or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, for me it was probably, why didn't Mrs. Bennet like Elizabeth? There was literally a line here where Mrs. Bennet said that she doesn't really care for Elizabeth. I mean, obviously there is motherly love, but like sometimes I was like, Jane Austen, why are you saying this?
Yeah.
So that mother-daughter bond, it was explored beautifully, and I wouldn't change it, but I'm just personally more interested. I would like to know, is it that Mrs. Bennet dislikes Elizabeth because she doesn't just want to think of like money while pursuing for marriage, or like waiting for someone to propose to her? Like I feel like there could have been even deeper discussions there, but what's here already is great.
Yeah.
I also feel like, because the first times I read Pride and Prejudice, I was a teenager, and now I'm 26. I'm older than Elizabeth. So I feel like that gives a whole nother new perspective to the story experience. For example, I understand how much importance marriage has in the lives of these 5 sisters. I feel like I understand that much better. And I also feel like language-wise, I just wholeheartedly understand now way better than at 18, because I have so much more knowledge of the English language. And I also felt like in my last year's Jane Austen July videos, I shared that last year's spring, I read Persuasion in English, and I liked it, but I felt like I didn't connect to it. But then I read it in Finnish, and I felt like I connected with the Finnish translation a lot. Here I connected very well with the English. I don't know, maybe it was because of our reading pace and reading 5 chapters at a time and reflecting right after. I think that I was more intentional maybe with this reading. If I think of like difference between this time reading versus previous times, I feel like I understand much better, and I feel like I understand the characters' thinking and the society they live in much better.
Yeah, when you mentioned the age of reading, like last time you read as a teenager and now as an adult, I can also see that I feel like there's a lot of things in the book like different aspects for different kinds of readers. Like as a teenager, we might have been more interested in seeing a lovely love story. But I feel like now, as a like more adult, I said older readers, I was like mostly reading this as like social commentary, from the cultural aspect, not just as a lovely love story.
Which it is,
Definitely. But like, yeah, that was really interesting to see me always like, oh, society works like this, and this kind of society breeds these kind of people, and etc. etc.
Yeah, and it might not make sense to us, but it makes sense to us in a way that this is how it was, and this is what Jane Austen wanted to represent. Okay, you said Elizabeth was your favorite character, which, okay, she's the main character, but what about your second fave?
You can't do this to me. I just really love Bingley.
Mr. Bingley, yeah. We love Mr. Bingley household.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, it's so simple. Like, he is written as, you know, a perfect man, basically. He's nice, he's understanding, he's rich. And he's willing to marry, like, like, under his station. Like, he's seen as this sort of, like, he is represented as a perfect character, but he is. Like, in the show, too.
And even when he doesn't meet with Jane in London, it's because he didn't knew that she was there. So even that, when he was like, oh, I don't like that Mr. Bingley because he refused to see Jane, he didn't know.
He's just so like sympathetic.
Yeah.
He's like a little teddy bear, honestly. And it works in like on the topic of, you know, having perfect characters with no flaws. That he is that, but he's also like Jane deserves a perfect character with no flaws.
Yeah. So now that you've read Pride and Prejudice, would you like to attempt reading another Jane Austen book, or do you think this is enough for you?
Oh God, no. Of course I will. Yes, I want to read them all. Once I have time in my life to read for pleasure, I will, definitely.
Which one?
I think I'll go with Emma next.
Yeah,
probably.
we love the movie adaptation, and
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've read Emma too. So,
Yeah.
all right. So those were our thoughts as reading Pride and Prejudice. First time reader, multiple time reader. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you, Joel, for once again being on my channel.
I'm slowly taking over the channel.
I should make a playlist of all Joel videos.
Yes.
I really enjoyed reading this book with you. It was
Me too.
such a lovely experience.
I want to buddy read with you more.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos about pop culture and books overall, subscribe to this channel. And I hope I see you in the next one. Bye.